Good evening and welcome to Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Amanda Bowen. Thank you for joining us this evening. Those numbers and website at the bottom of your screen are your best ways to get a forecast outside of our show. 1-800-472-0391 is the phone number you can call anytime to get a recorded forecast. If you have internet access, you can also visit weather.gov/Alaska and type in your city or zip code to get a personalized forecast for the next 7 days, as well as plenty of other weather and climate information. And as always, if you have any feedback or comments for us, please feel free to email us anytime at nws.ar.tvweather@noaa.gov. We don't have any actual hazards out for the next couple of days, so let's review a little bit of what the weather looked like in Fairbanks over the summer. Today is September 3rd and meteorological summer ended August 31st. So looking back at that period of time of June, July, and August, two big stories in the Fairbanks area. One was that there was only one day with a temperature greater than or equal to 80 degrees. That's tied for the fewest numbers of days in a meteorological summer. Now, of note, there were 2 days in May that were greater than 80 degrees, but that is not in that June, July, and August timeframe, so those aren't counted for the actual designated summer time period. The other significant thing for the Fairbanks area was days with thunderstorms. There were 19 days in June, July, and August that had thunderstorms reported at the Fairbanks airport, and that is tied with 1988 for the most thunderstorm days in one summer. So not as hot in Fairbanks as usual, but also more thunderstorms than usual for the Fairbanks area. Taking a look at what's happening now, looking at the satellite imagery, we can see moisture coming into the Panhandle area, that plume of moisture from the southern Gulf right up into the Panhandle, bringing rain in there today. We also see quite a lot of clouds over the southern third of the state with rain, showers, and thunderstorms in that area. And then finally, we see our next low pressure system coming into the Aleutians and bringing plenty of clouds and rain with it. For today's weather, as we discussed, we've got that plume of moisture coming into the Panhandle, so expect showers there today. We've got weak low pressure both over south central and over the northwestern portions of the state. So with that low in south central, we expect showers around it, and a trough extending up into the Yukon River area near the Canadian border, where we expect isolated thunderstorms this afternoon and this evening. With that weak low pressure system over the northwestern portion of the state, we continue to see and expect high water levels on northwest facing coastlines, including the northwestern Seward Peninsula as well as the Yukon Delta. So expect higher than usual water levels, maybe a little bit of beach erosion as well as waves on the beach for the Seward Peninsula from about Shishmaref to Wales, as well as the Yukon Delta. That's going to be today and into the day on Friday as that low pressure dissipates. And then finally, we have our strengthening low in the western Aleutians. And again, that's going to be bringing plenty of clouds and showers to the Aleutians. As we head into tonight, we see that low continuing to strengthen in the Aleutians, with that rain and showers area continuing to push east through the Aleutians, bringing more rain to the eastern Aleutians and starting to dry out behind the low for the western Aleutians. We've got high pressure solidifying itself over the southern Alaska Peninsula, as well as high pressure developing tonight over the Panhandle. So for both of those areas, we expect conditions to start drying out a bit. Low pressure over south central will continue some showers in that area, as well as some cooler air bringing continued snow to the Alaska Range, or the higher terrain of the Alaska Range. That low pressure over the northwestern portion of the state stays in place, so expect a combination of fog and rain along much of the west coast, the Chukchi Sea coast, as well as the North Slope areas tonight. For Friday, A little bit of a change in the picture with that high pressure that was centered over the southern Alaska Peninsula shifting north to over the Yukon Delta for Friday. So that's going to bring continuing dry conditions to portions of southwestern Alaska, including the Kuskokwim Delta, but we do expect fog and rain to continue for the Yukon Delta and points north and then also along the North Slope areas. One more afternoon of isolated thunder over the easternmost portion of the interior near the Yukon River and the Canadian border. And even though it's a weak low pressure system over the south central area, it continues to remain in place with showers expected for the northern Alaska Peninsula and much of the northern Gulf Coast. For Saturday, finally a day where we're not expecting any isolated thunderstorms, but we will see some showers over the eastern interior, as well as a combination of rain and fog over the northwestern portions of the state, including the western Brooks Range and the Chukchi Sea coast. Also some rain starting to move into the southern panhandle, and that low that was moving through the Aleutians shifts south, but continuing to bring rain further east into the southern Alaska Peninsula. High pressure replaces low pressure over the northern Gulf, so expect some drying conditions from the northern panhandle across the northern Gulf to south central and even the northern Alaska Peninsula on Saturday. High pressure over the southwestern portion of the state on Friday moves further north to the Bering Strait area on Saturday, with some fog continuing or developing over the Seward Peninsula and St. Lawrence Island areas for Saturday. Heading into temperatures for Friday morning, we expect some chilly temperatures once again over the Brooks Range with temperatures near freezing, upper 30s for the North Slope, around 40 for the West Coast, some 30s even for southwestern Alaska, 37 to 39 from the Alaska Peninsula across to the Kuskokwim Delta. Temperatures around 40 to the mid 40s for South Central and upper 40s to around 50 for the Panhandle on Friday morning. Friday afternoon, our mild fall temperatures continue with our warmest temperatures in the southern Panhandle topping out in the mid 60s. Elsewhere are typically warm areas across the interior mainland, topping out in the upper 50s to around 60. Looking at 40s, lower 40s to mid 40s for the North Slope, as well as much of the Seward Peninsula, especially that northwest coast again with those northwest winds around that low pressure system. Some warmer air in the Alaska Peninsula with temperatures topping out in the upper 50s, as well as upper 50s in South Central for Friday afternoon. Saturday morning, more of the same, maybe a couple of degrees cooler, especially in the Brooks Range and parts of Southwest, where we'll see some more widespread 30s instead of 40s. Also some 30s for the Seward Peninsula with 38 at Nome. 30s in the Alaska Range as well as the Wrangell St. Elias Mountains. Looking at 40s to around 50 for the Panhandle again, as well as the Aleutians. And Saturday afternoon for the interior, maybe a little bit cooler than Friday afternoon, but for Southwest and South Central, maybe a couple of degrees warmer with temperatures hitting 60 degrees to maybe even some low 60s. Also looking at temperatures around 60 degrees again for the Panhandle. Taking a look at our climate outlook, yesterday we looked at the fall outlook. This is a much shorter term outlook for next week, next Wednesday through next weekend. So we're looking at the southern third of the state favoring warmer than usual temperatures, the northern third of the state favoring cooler than usual temperatures, and the central portion of the state actually favoring near normal temperatures. Again, this is for next week, Wednesday through Sunday. For precipitation over that same period, much of the state favoring above normal precipitation, but the Panhandle looks like it's going to be favoring below normal precipitation for this same time period. And between those, in the extreme southeastern portion of the mainland, we do expect normal precipitation amounts.
And now, Aviation weather around Alaska.
On to a look at your aviation forecast, starting out with flying weather for Friday morning. We'll see IFR conditions across the northern tier of the state north of the Brooks Range, as well as over portions of the western Aleutians. Also some patches of IFR across the Bering Strait, as well as portions of the Alaska Range and the southwestern portion of the mainland stretching down to about Yakutat. For Friday afternoon, some improvement along the northern tier 2 MVFR for the western North Slope, but plenty of IFR development across the state as well, across much of the Aleutians, as well as the northern Bering, across St. Matthew Island, and most of the eastern Alaska Range, as well as the higher terrain stretching from the extreme southeastern mainland into the higher terrain of the Panhandle. For Saturday morning, the northern tier of the state looks pretty similar to Friday, so IFR conditions continuing across the eastern North Slope, with conditions improving to MVFR or VFR for the western half of the North Slope, as well as the Chukchi Sea coast. IFR conditions developing across the rest of the Alaska Range, as well as the higher terrain of the northern Panhandle. Also some IFR conditions impacting eastern Kodiak Island, as well as the southwestern portion of Seward Peninsula stretching west out to St. Lawrence Island. And as usual, IFR conditions across much of the Aleutians for Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon, we finally do see some more improvement along the North Slope with MVFR or VFR conditions for much of the North Slope, but those IFR conditions expected to hang on for the easternmost portions of the North Slope. Some improvement to MVFR across the Alaska Range, although that eastern Alaska Range area is still expected to remain IFR. IFR conditions developing for the southern Panhandle and continuing for western portions of St. Lawrence Island, as well as much of the Aleutians. Taking a look at your passes for Friday, Anaktuvik Pass starting out the day IFR and improving to MVFR Friday afternoon. Adigan Pass looking like it's going to stay IFR all day on Friday though. Lake Clark Pass expected to be MVFR on Friday, but Merrill Pass in that area in the Alaska Range is going to be IFR on Friday. Rainy Pass also IFR on Friday, as well as Windy Pass IFR. Isabel Pass MVFR in the morning hours on Friday, improving to VFR in the afternoon. Mentasta Pass MVFR in the morning, improving to VFR in the afternoon. Tanita Pass MVFR in the morning, but deteriorating to IFR conditions Friday afternoon. Portage Pass expected to be MVFR all day Friday, and Chilcoot and White Passes also expected to be MVFR on Friday. For freezing levels Friday morning, most of the state we're looking at around 4,000 foot freezing levels stretching across basically the entire mainland and down through the Aleutians. The exception to that is going to be the Panhandle, where we're seeing some warmer air starting to come up from the southeast. So from the central Panhandle south, higher than 4,000 feet, 6,000 feet, 8,000 feet, even as high as 10,000 feet across the extreme southern portions of the Panhandle for Friday morning. For icing on Friday, we've got lots of isolated moderate icing. It's going to be above 8,000 feet for the northern tier of the state, above 9,000 feet for the southern half of the state, and above 8,000 feet for the Aleutians on Friday. For the jet stream winds, we have two main lows associated with these jets. The first low is over south central with that jet to its southeast across the Panhandle and stretching into western Canada. So 90 to about 100 knots out of the west and southwest across the Panhandle with that jet. Then we have a stronger jet stretching from the Kamchatka Peninsula off Russia southward, just south and west of the western Aleutians, 120 to 145 knots out of the north and northeast. For 9,000 foot winds, we have a similar area of strongest winds over the southern Panhandle, 40 to 50 knots out of the west and southwest, and then another area just west of the western Aleutians, about 45 knots out of the north and northeast there. 3,000 foot winds, we have not much in the way of winds over the Panhandle, but we do have a focused area of stronger winds out of the south and southwest in the central Aleutians, peaking at about 50 knots for Friday. And turbulence on Friday, we have one area of considerable moderate turbulence stretching from the western Aleutians across most of the Aleutians. That's going to be below 3,000 feet. Stay tuned for more Alaska weather after this.
La-di-da-di-da, Star Gizzles. Trace here looking up at you this week, and we've got a great view of the heavenly G. Any morning this week, pre-dawn, look east and you're going to see bright, beautiful Venus. Right now, she's flying through a huge asterism formed by the brightest stars of numerous constellations known as the heavenly G. To find it, start in the middle of the G with red Betelgeuse in Orion. Hop to Aldebaran in Taurus, then back to Orion for super bright Rigel, then to Sirius in Canis Major, Procyon in Canis Minor, Castor and Pollux in Gemini, and finally Capella in Auriga. Retrace your steps with a line connecting these and you'll have drawn a giant letter G in the heavens. Looking at stars is looking back in time, and as the original G Snoop Dogg said, you gotta go back in time if you want to move forward. Share this asterism with me on Twitter if you spot it, and keep looking up.
Ever been to the beach and noticed litter like plastic bottles or foam takeout containers on the sand? Or maybe you've been to a river or bay where there's a bag or a car tire stuck in the mud on the shore, or a bunch of deflated balloons that say happy birthday floating in the water? All of that junk in the water or on the shoreline is considered marine debris. It's anything solid and man-made in the ocean or Great Lakes that is not supposed to be there. And anything people use every day can become marine debris if they don't dispose of it properly. And I mean anything. The most common items we find when we do shoreline cleanups are plastics. But we also find rubber, cloth, glass, metal, and paper litter. Sometimes the debris is so tiny, like a plastic microbead from your face wash, that you can barely see it in the water. Marine debris is more than just trash in the ocean. Sometimes fishers lose their gear like fishing traps, nets, or fishing line, and it continues to drift through the water, catching animals for a long time. We call that derelict fishing gear, and it's marine debris. Have you ever seen an old boat left behind on a shoreline? Abandoned and derelict vessels are also marine debris. So let's review. Anything we use every day can become marine debris if we don't dispose of it properly or if it goes into the water by accident. Marine debris can be very small or can be very big, and anything in between. But most importantly, marine debris is one of the biggest pollution problems facing the world's oceans and waterways today.
How does marine debris impact the ocean, animals, and me? Would you want to swim in a beach littered with trash? Of course not. And the animals who live in the ocean don't either. The difference is, they don't have a choice. Marine species often get tangled in debris, from fishing nets to six-pack rings. If they get caught, they could get injured or even die. And even if they don't get entangled, many animals mistake plastic debris for food and eat it. This fills their stomach with junk they can't digest. Debris can also damage important habitats, like coral reefs, by breaking or smothering them. Corals serve as the base of the marine ecosystem, and impacts here can be felt all the way to you and me. Plus, plastics have harmful chemicals in them. Fish eat plastic, we eat fish. The question is, can those chemicals harm us? Marine debris also hurts the economy. It costs a lot of money to clean up, and people don't want to go to dirty beaches. Boats and ships could run into large pieces of debris too, or get their propellers tangled. We need the ocean and everything in it, and the ocean needs us to keep it free of debris. What can we do about marine debris?
A lot of the trash that's in our ocean is plastic.
And that marine debris is hurting our environment, economy and health.
The problem will only get worse.
Unless we change the way we consume and dispose of products. There are solutions,
And together, we can prevent litter from ending up in the ocean. Some people might say,
well, I'm just one person, so I can't make a difference.
but that's just not true.
If each person who creates trash, and that's just about everyone, took action, it would add up to a whole lot of change.
So what can we do?
Well, the ultimate solution is prevention. And we need to keep that as our highest priority.
We can reduce, reuse, and recycle to keep debris out of the ocean in the first place.
You can bring your own shopping bag, drink out of a reusable bottle, and participate in things like a shoreline cleanup.
Join a group cleaning up the beach or grab some friends and clean up your street. It's easy.
Be more conscious of how many disposable plastic items you're using. And if you do,
Where are you putting it? In the trash can? Whoops. Or in the recycling bin?
so here's the challenge. The next time you finish using a throwaway item, a bag, a bottle, or utensil, answer the question, where is this going? Because ultimately, when you throw stuff away, there really is no away. It has to go somewhere.
So keep asking yourself this important question.
How will you keep your trash from becoming marine debris?
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back for a look at your marine forecast. Starting with the sea ice edge, we haven't seen a lot of change since yesterday, but we do continue to see that higher concentration multi-year ice moving into the eastern Bering from the Canadian waters. We're also continuing to see that very low concentration ice at high latitudes in the Chukchi and western Beaufort seas. For southeast winds and seas on Friday, we are looking at rather calm winds and low seas, about 10 knots across the board, with 5 to 6 foot seas in the Gulf and 2 to 3 foot seas for the inside waterways. For Saturday, we see an increase in the winds a little bit, mostly a shift to more northerly and northeasterly winds, 15 knots in the Gulf, about 10 to 15 knots in the inside waterways. Seas actually coming down just a little bit in the Gulf, 4 to 5 feet, and still about 2 to 3 feet for those inside waterways on Saturday. South Central on Friday, also not a lot in the way of winds or seas. We're looking at about 10 knots of wind, maybe as high as 15 knots near the Berings out of the west. Seas 3 to 5 feet over the Gulf, about 2 feet in Prince William Sound and 3 feet in Cook Inlet for Friday. That starts to change a little bit on Saturday, though, as we start to see seas increase ahead of our next strong low pressure system. So 5 to 10 foot seas in the Gulf on Saturday, 4 to 5 feet in Cook Inlet. Winds not coming up a whole lot, but a little bit to about 15 knots in portions of the area, particularly south of the Kenai Peninsula. For the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island areas on Friday, again 10 to 15 knot winds for Friday. Seas just 3 to 4 feet on the Gulf side and about 2 feet on the Bering Sea side. But again, we'll see that change as we head into Saturday. So winds all the way up to 25 to 30 knots out of the east and northeast on the Gulf side, with seas coming up to 11 to 14 feet on that Gulf side. Winds coming up just a little bit on the Bering Sea side, about 20 knots out of the northeast, and seas coming up slightly, but still fairly small, 4 to 5 feet on the Bering Sea side. For the Aleutian chain, 20 to 30 knot winds out of the southeast and east for Friday. The exception will be the western Aleutians, where we have low pressure centered on Friday, so we'll actually have some northerly winds there at about 30 knots. Seas 4 to 8 feet on the south side of the chain, 3 to 7 feet on the north side, which with about 9 to 10 feet over the western Aleutians. Heading into Saturday, we'll be behind that low pressure system, so seas coming down a little bit, 5 to 8 feet on the north side, 10 to 11 feet on the south side, 8 to 9 feet for the western Aleutians. Winds pretty consistent though, still 25 to 30 knots out of the northeast for most of the Aleutians on Saturday. For the west coast on Friday, 10 to 20 knot winds out of the northeast closer to the mainland. And then as you get down into the Bering, more out of the southeast at about 20 knots. And then heading into Saturday, we'll see winds in the southern Bering come up a bit, 20 to 25 knots out of the east and northeast, and still around 10 knots for the northern Bering out of the south. Friday for the Arctic coast, easterly and northeasterly flow, 20 knots out of the east for the north slope, 10 to 20 knots out of the east and northeast across the Chukchi Sea. And then heading into Saturday, we'll see those winds come down ever so slightly for the north slope. Southerly to southeasterly winds for the north slope, 15 knots, about 3-foot seas up there. Also about 3 feet in the Chukchi Sea with winds out of the southwest at about 15 knots. Recapping what we're looking at for tonight, we have high pressure centered over the southern Alaska Peninsula, so mostly dry conditions stretching all the way from about southwest Alaska out through much of the Gulf. Still some showers hanging around for south central and stretching north into the interior to about the Yukon River. Low pressure over the northwestern portion of the state will continue to bring those northwest winds to the west coast, so expect some high water and breaking waves along northwest facing coastlines. High pressure over the Panhandle, but some showers sticking around, and we have our low pressure over the Aleutians bringing some showers there as well. Thanks so much for watching Alaska TV Weather.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.